and I never forgot that. I also remember my first coach, Keith Cooch, who has passed as well, but at primary school, my first coach, and I remember him drilling skills,
Yep.
and we would, like as 11-year-old, 12-year-olds, right and left, and my dad did as well. But these are lessons that you never forget, and I always felt that was really important. And
Oh, KT,
yeah,
I cringe at how many people can't kick on their left foot. I personally,
yeah,
I shake my head in disbelief.
I know.
I
I
don't
don't
get
know
it. I don't get it. So,
how. The number of times where it's a get out of jail card.
oh,
If you can
massively.
get out and do something constructive, that makes you a dangerous player. And but they were hard men, but decent people, and really good values. And I never forget those influences.
I tell you what, too, KT. While we talk openly as 84 because we ended up winning it, I think the achievement in 80, making the grand final, coming from the elimination final, and running Port Adelaide against a great Port, I still think the best Port side was 80, with Mark Williams in the middle and Tim Evans dominating at full forward, etc. And we ran Port right to the wire in 80. And to Russell Ebert's great credit, he says that is the biggest pants down job he ever got, where Kingo played one of the great games in footy history and nearly got us up. And typical Kingo, grand final night, he kept blaming himself for that handball which Kim Kinnear intercepted, where he went to handball over the top to Danny. And I'm going, Kingo, you've just obliterated Russell Ebert.
Yeah.
And that.
I think you're reflecting on that game well. That Port Adelaide side was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was equivalent to there was a West Adelaide side in
1983. Yep.
That was an incredible side, and that Port Adelaide 1980 side was the best side, SANFL side that I played against for sure. And we felt as if this is what having to win 9 of the last 10 games or whatever it was to get into that position does for you. But we felt as if we could be close at 3/4 time, we could run over the top of them, and we were. And
we were, and Mocker getting caught by Bruce Abernethy. And that sort of thing, and we weren't far away at all. We really weren't.
We were in the last 8 or 9 minutes, right amongst it, but they were absolutely worthy winners, and we'd lost our ruckman, and
you go at work,
at work, and so, but there was a lot of we don't obviously when you lose grand finals you don't talk about them a lot, but that was an incredible achievement.
Yeah, that's how I felt as well. Always about that one. That for me, it has never had the bitter taste of a couple of others. I've never felt that way about it. Year, I admit this year for mine, or last year now, is still the most bitter.
Well, you can play well and not get the result, and I think that's probably why it's not as bitter in 80.
Control the controllables. Yeah. Norwood didn't do that last year.
1981, mate.
The bloody win, KT.
Yeah, you had a pretty good year personally, but the win got you there against Glenelg.
Well, I remember driving down West Lakes Boulevard, listening to the weather report, and they said they called it. They said this thing, it's a 6-goal breeze, and it's going to turn, early in the game. And so the toss was really important.
Oh,
we lost that toss.
Whoever won the toss won the game. You might as well played a game of 2 up for an hour. Would have been fairer. Yeah, it was incredible.
And it was almost unplayable. We just couldn't do anything into it twice. And I felt like that was incredibly disappointing, because we felt like we were absolutely good enough to win that year. And certainly to beat Glenelg. At that time, we maybe somewhat arrogantly, we always felt as if we had Glenelg's measure.
Yeah.
that changed about in the mid '80s, but
Yes.
In that early '80s, we always felt as if we could get them.
Yeah.
But the gods conspired against us, and it was a missed opportunity. But I remember being furious at halftime, thinking, I think we might have been 10 goals down.
Yeah, we were. It was about 9, I reckon it was. But yeah, it was just so disheartening. Yeah.
It was almost. We just couldn't find a way.
I think I'll be honest. I think we were in the bar by that stage, KT too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, you didn't have to wait long, because 1982 came along, and you're a major contributor, obviously, with second in the best and fairest. But it was probably the premiership that was the one that Norwood really, really wanted.
Yeah, but didn't we come home with a wet sail in terms of that Port 112 win against Port at Norwood? There was 18,000 there. We drank champagne on the ground as do the Port supporters up after the game. Smashed then West, who was still a chance to make the next game. Of course, we'd only lost that one game in 12 on the run home with the Paul Weston screw punt, which actually I think turned out to be a blessing, because I think we then did more research and probably treated Glenelg with more respect. And I was very confident. 82, I'm a shocking nervous thing with football. And I've actually got worse as I've got older, not better. But 82, I was just really relaxed walking in. I honestly thought we'd win convincingly, and we did.
Yeah. Well, I was pretty toey at the start of the game, and I was standing in the race with Danny Jenkins before the game, and I said, "Geez, how do you think we're going to go here?" And he was absolutely deadpan. There, no problem whatsoever. Yeah. And I was shocked by that. I was going, "What are you? It's a grand final, and Glenelg, it's a good side." And
Danny wasn't a person to say something like that lightly either. No, so it's interesting. Yeah.
It was. I couldn't believe the state of mind that he was in, and he said, "Not a problem in the world." And so we went out, and it went pretty well. We had some pretty good performances. Ricky Neagle, kicking 6, and there was we were playing pretty well at that stage, and Glenelg were banged up from the week before. Yeah. That was an incredible. We were at that game, and we were watching that, and we knew that they would be they would still be feeling the effects of all that. And so, as it turned out, we felt like we had them most of the day, and then we blew them away at the end.
Yeah, felt sorry for Peter Carey. We've had Super on Super on our show, and actually, we talked about your dad wanting to buy down at Port Adelaide to get you in their zone. Yeah. Super's dad did do that. He bought a house deliberately in Glenelg to get him in the Glenelg zone. But he said in 81, there he was, his leg was stuffed and he probably shouldn't have played. But Jack Howard said, well, you 50% fits better than what else we've got. And we played him smart, and he took a mark, and everyone just immediately crowded him to make sure he didn't handball off. And he had to have a shot on his left foot and miss from 10 yards out. And we were virtually home. We were home pretty early there.
Well, I think that Wally Miller, thinks of that side, that premiership, as one of the best in his his tenure at the club, and and I guess if you reflect on it again, it's one of those, because 84 turned out to be such an unbelievable historical reference point. 82 sort of gets lost.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
in the wash, but it was a pretty special team, and it was a team which it still had players from the late 70s, early 80s, and then the newer group, the next generation were coming through. So you still had a bit of both. And so it had the best of both worlds, I think.
Mate, you mentioned that you're a little toey in the race there, and could the drive to the game with the music be any part of that?
No.
Got you a little too pumped up?
Well, when it comes on, even today, it still takes me back there. It was just one of those things that, it became symbolic of the moment. For certainly for me, I don't know.
And then
Turbs
wore that bloody tiger thing the next day or the next week, and because he'd been tiger hunting and that. Yes.
Now, just for our listeners, the older listeners will know it's the original Eye of the Tiger, but not the Katy Perry Eye of the Tiger.
No,
definitely.
The Rocky
that's
version.
Right.
Yep. Now let's go to then. We'll go for a bit of humour. Back to a bit of humour. Now, it's fair to say that Keith's the more quiet, measured one of his partnership. And bear in mind with Pat that they're childhood sweethearts right from Campbelltown High the whole way through. So that's a fair effort in itself. Mm-hmm. And Pat's probably the louder, the more gregarious one. I've actually known Pat for longer than Keith because Pat's sister played netball at Norman, so Desiree. So I know Pat from right back then. So there is a game, there's a sporting event on, and it's cricket and footy. And I was working in the cricket part and the tennis final. So it's all between the league clubs and representatives. And it's very much a social game of tennis, Pete. So it's
enjoy yourself.
Good
few drinks, good shot.
Too good, Pete. Yep, good shot, Malcolm. Yeah, right.
Yep.
And it's going exactly like that. And it's Norwood playing West Torrens in the final. And it's Keith and Michael Aishi playing David McKay and Kim Dillon. And West Torrens are in front. And all of a sudden there's this voice comes out with foot fault. And it's Pat, Keith's better half. And the umpire, and by the way, it wasn't me, because a lot of people said, shit, you were working at Woodlands, were you umpire? I said, no, not tennis.
Yep.
Not tennis.
Yep.
The umpire's called foot fault on David McKay's next serve. Oh, my God. The game has immediately changed. It has become an Australian Open final in terms of the seriousness of it.
On for young and old.
Oh, and fair to say there's a bit of bad blood there at Norwood with Kim Dillon for various things. We won't go into that and yeah. So it
was ugly. That was an ugly moment.
Oh, bloody funny! But we came through to win.
Yep.
So as Pat said, justified. We got up. Yeah. So I still call Pat to this day foot fault. So yes.
I've still got the trophy. They can't take it away from us.
No. We got up. Yeah.
She was she was very deep in the crowd too. It was a long way back. It was incredible that she saw it. But anyway,
we certainly heard it. That was for sure. Never a problem hearing Pat's voice. There may have been a Fitzroy game, KT playing reserves at Waverley.
Yep.
Look, then let's be honest, not a huge number of people at a reserves game at Waverley, and Fitzroy may have run out onto the ground, and there may have been a wife supporting her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Keith. Come on, Fitzroy. The Fitzroy players may have gone in the huddle, all started going, come on, Keith. Come on, Fitzroy.
Yeah.
So,
I'll leave. There's a couple of stories I want to tell you that probably haven't ever been aired before.
I'll go for it, KT. Yep.
I'm going to take you back to the debut game, because this is also part of that story. So
right,
it's Norwood Glenelg.
Yep.
Where it's half time. I'm shivering, haven't been on, and we're going down the race, and the crowd's going crazy. And in the race, Harry Kernahan and Bob Hammond are fighting, having a massive blue.
Okay.
Belting the hell out of each other. And I'm sort of
never heard about this.
I know. I'm sneaking past them against the wall, going, "Is this league footy? You know, what am I looking at here? What am I looking at?" So that, and not a word was ever spoken.
No, I've never heard that. No.
So that was in the race, and then you talk about me playing my first game at Fitzroy was in the twos.
Yep.
And I was a notorious early starter. I wanted to get there 2 hours before the game, right?
Yes, you were.
Prepare. So it's at the MCG, I get there, and the ground is locked.
Yeah,
right?
gates not open.
So I'm standing there with my bag thinking, well, am I at the wrong gate? So I've climbed over the ticket turnstile at the time. I was able to climb up and into the MCG at 9:30 on the morning. And that was my debut. That was people talk about the glamour of AFL. Well, it wasn't overly glamorous at the start for me.
Well, that's
gold.
That
KT.
is gold, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, mate, you've sort of segued very nicely into what we were going to ask you next. Was that obviously successful 82? The VFL was sort of getting some players recruited from South Australia. You had an opportunity, I believe, at Melbourne that came up.
I did. I was being. I met with Ron Barassi and Dick Seddon, and they were very keen, and I was keen on them, and I was keen to go, and I actually signed an agreement to go at the end of '83.
Yeah.
And but I'd had a really good year in '83. I played a good season, but I had a very poor final series, as did the team. And,
yes, we were disappointing. Yep.
We had a better side than that. And anyway, so at the end of that year, I was so flat. I went back to Melbourne and said, look, I can't. I'd signed the contract. I said, I can't do this. I can't leave Norwood under these circumstances. I just don't feel right. Would it be okay just to delay my start until '84? And so I'd flown to Melbourne with that.
285, yeah.
No, wait until. So I was going to go at the end of '83.
Yeah.
Yes, it's for the '85 season.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
So I flew back. So I'd flown over to say that. I flew back. And by the time I'd landed back in Adelaide, they had sued me. There was a legal.
Yeah,
I
knew
legal
that.
document with my lawyer, and so I went to Wally, and this is the second time in my career that he stitched me up. He had a look at it. Now at this stage, we're not talking Michael Aish contracts.
We're not talking yellow Salikas. No. Yeah.
What they'd done is at this stage they'd given me a video cassette recorder for my wedding. We'd got married, and so they'd given me that. It was nice. It was nice, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
We're not breaking the bank.
No,
Anyway,
I wouldn't have thought so.
But in my mind, I had signed the contract, and so I felt responsible and that I'd done the wrong thing. So I went to Wally. I said, look, I want to get out of this, but I feel compelled. What do you think I should do? And he said, leave it with me, right?
Yeah.
So I said, okay. Oh, so a few days later, he comes back and he says, okay, don't worry about it anymore. You're out. You're out of that contract. We've taken care of it. I said, well, what's it gonna cost me? What's the penalty? He said, no penalty, but you've got to sign a 3-year contract with us. Because it's bloody expensive. We've had to go to great lengths to do this. Blah blah blah. Yeah. So I signed a 3-year contract, and it's only now, when you're a bit older and you understand how these things work. That would have been a 5-minute conversation and a $400
recompense.
But what it did was it locked me in for 84, 85, and 86, and as it turns out, they were certainly 84 and 85 were fantastic years for me personally and for the club, and 84 clearly ended up defining my career, and so these things are sliding door moments, and thank God that Wally was a hard negotiator and looked after me.
And let's remember too, 84, we were nearly gone. We were a fair chance not to make the 5. A certain Greg Thomas comes off the bench at Theberton, famous game where the West Torrens supporters berating Barmy, and you're going to panic, and Barmy turning around and telling him, well, they'd know where the panic button was, and Greg kicked 4 in the last quarter to get us up. And then Tomo had a very good game again the next week against Glenelg and kicked 4 in Turb's 100th. So we then got on a bit of a roll, but we beat Port at Footy Park after we got annihilated by Centrals at Elizabeth, I reckon. Yeah. And so, we came home with a sail there.
Well, I remember there was a whiteboard session with Barmy when we were either 9th or 10th on the ladder.
Yeah, we were bottom at one stage,
and he just laid it all up, the fixture for the remainder of the year, and basically asked the question of, do you think that we can beat South? Do you think that we can beat West? Do you think that we can beat Glenelg? And one by one, we just said, we think we can. But the problem was we had to beat them all because we didn't have any wriggle room, and so we had to win. I think we had to win again 9 of the last 10 games to get in, and we fell in. But again, by that stage, we were playing pretty well, and that game at Theberton, I think we had to kick 7 goals.
Yeah, against the wind.
Quarter, in the rain, and and if you lose any of those games, you don't make finals. So it was a pretty the story of '84. It was a fantastic grand final, but it was the lead-in.
Yes,
we were down against Centrals.
3 goals at the 18-minute mark of the last quarter.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe.